everyone, welcome to Slice of Life. My name is Dabney. I'm the young adult librarian at the Twin Lakes Library System, and I use they, them pronouns. Today I am kicking off a mini series where I will be highlighting different manga series in our collection for you to binge read. And my first selection is focusing on manga that I think are, really strong action stories. I can't hold them all at once. There are too many. But these are my selections, and I will talk about them briefly or not so briefly, depends. So I am a huge fan of manga and anime. I've read like almost all of the manga in our young adult collection, which if you've ever been there, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of volumes. If you go on our Goodreads list, you can browse all of it and see what we've got. I try to make sure that we have the complete series of everything. Occasionally things will be checked out. You can always put them on hold if they're gone. But yeah, I try to make sure that we have a complete series. So, when you get the urge to binge, you can do that. All right, so let's get started. I am going to start with My Hero Academia. This one is super popular. I think most people have probably heard of it, and it is the odd one out in the rest of these selections because it is the only one that is rated for teen. The other ones I picked out, they are all rated for older teen. So again, I picked these series because they have lots of action. So I think they would appeal to people who like action movies, who like superhero movies, that sort of thing. Okay, so My Hero Academia. There are currently 25 volumes available in English. We have them in our collection. And we also have the anime seasons and the movie. So you can binge read and then binge watch and have all the feels. So this one is set in Japan, and people have begun developing like superpowers known as quirks. So not everybody gets a quirk. Some people are born quirkless. And there's a range as far as like the type of quirks you can have and how powerful they are. Some people's quirks are not very powerful and they don't really play that much of a role in their life. Other people have very powerful quirks, and these people usually become heroes or they could become villains. And another thing about quirks is they can also change a person's appearance. So like within this story, you'll see some of like the main characters have different appearances. Like one guy kind of looks like he's made out of rocks. Another person, she's like totally invisible. There's a girl who's pink and has horns and like black eyes. There's one guy who kind of like looks like he has a bird head and the rest of him is like human. Those are just some examples. And the story is about Midoriya. I love him. Okay, so he's a middle school student and he was born without a quirk, which is very tragic for him because he adores the #1 pro hero, All Might. Like, he is All Might's ultimate fanboy ever since he was little. He just wants to be like All Might. And he's like obsessed with heroes, just in general. Like, he has notebooks full of all the facts about all the heroes. He's like pretty obsessive, and even though he doesn't have a quirk, he hasn't given up on being a hero. One of his classmates is Bakugo. They've grown up together. They were kind of friends when they were little, and then Bakugo's quirk started manifesting, and it's like this really powerful, explosive quirk. And around that time, he just really started bullying Midoriya. He calls him Deku, which is apparently like an insulting nickname. And, despite all that, Midoriya still you know, wants to be friends with Bakugo. Who knows? Middle schoolers. So one day, Bakugo is attacked by villains. Midoriya sees this. He tries to step in to save Bakugo. Of course, he doesn't have a quirk, so that backfires. And All Might shows up and saves the day. And at that time, he realizes like Midoriya does have like the heart of a hero, even though he doesn't have a quirk. And All Might lets him in on this secret, which is that All Might's quirk was given to him. So he wasn't born with a quirk, he was gifted a quirk. And he ends up passing on that power to Midoriya. And so he starts training Midoriya to use this power. Of course, this is very shocking to everyone. Like, they don't know why all of a sudden Midoriya has this powerful quirk. And he has to keep it a secret that he got it from All Might. So Midoriya and Bakugo apply to go to the #1 hero school, which is UA High School. They're both accepted, they're both students there, and they're both in the same class. Bakugo is so mad. And so this story follows them, mostly follows Midoriya, as he's like training to be a hero. There's so many students, there's so many heroes, so many villains, so many characters that you get to know in this series. But it's really great, and there's amazing action sequences and fights. And I would say like it's different from the other ones I'm going to talk about because it's not... there are dark storylines, but overall it's lighter. It's more focused on like the positive things, like being a hero. And while the fight scenes are intense, they're not really... I mean, they can be brutal, but overall, it's not on the level of the other ones we're going to talk about. And it's not really that gory that I can remember. So, but yes, if you love superheroes at all, you should definitely check this out. All right. Gotta have some tea really fast. All right, Dead Man Wonderland. This is for older teens, definitely. There are 13 volumes. We have them all in our collection. This is also made into an anime, which we don't have in our collection. It's just FYI. And in this story, it's set in Japan, and in the world of the story, there are private prisons that are run sort of as theme parks. So Dead Man Wonderland is one of them. And the criminals who are sent there, when they show up, they put this collar around their neck, and it injects poison into their system. And while they're there, they can earn the antidote, but the way they do that is they have to compete in these like death games. So, citizens pay to visit Dead Man Wonderland. They think it's like an amusement park. They don't realize that these brutal death games that they're watching, they don't realize that the people are actually dying. They think that's all fake. I don't know why they think that's fake. It's live, but whatever. So yeah, the prisoners compete in the games to earn the antidote. So our main character is Gonta. He is a middle school student, and one day, like at the very beginning, his entire class is massacred. And it's like really mysterious how it happens. And for some reason, they place the blame on Gonta, the one surviving student. He's taken to Dead Man Wonderland, and of course is like totally overwhelmed by everything that's happening to him. Like all of a sudden, this little middle school guy is in prison with like hardcore scary people. So he's like focused on surviving, trying to get out if he can, and trying to figure out like what happened to his classmates. While he's there, he meets this mysterious girl who they have a mysterious past together. I'm not gonna say much more about that. So, things are already hard enough for Ganta, but then he discovers like another level to the prison, which is where prisoners who are able to manifest weapons from their blood are forced into these like fights, and they're not exactly fights to the death, but people get really messed up in these fights, and like rich corrupt people like bet on them and watch the fights, and it's pretty awful honestly. So really interesting story, and lots of twists and turns. As I remember, there's things that happen that took me totally by surprise. Lots of great action and fight sequences, though as I mentioned, it's very dark, messed up, bloody, violent, older teens only. But if that's your jam, then recommend this one. Okay, Tokyo Ghoul Re. I really love this series. It is also older teens. Tokyo Ghoul has 14 volumes. Tokyo Ghoul Re has 16 volumes. You absolutely have to read this first before you get into this series. Otherwise, it's just not going to make sense to you. So we have all of the volumes, and we have the anime, and there's also like a live action movie. So you can check all that out at the library. So set in Japan, set in Tokyo, there are ghouls, which ghouls look like humans, but they can only eat human flesh to survive. Like, that's all they can eat. And they also have this ability to manifest weapons from their body. There's a theme here with all of these. And the things, they just look real crazy. Like, really, I can't even describe it. See if I can find a picture while I'm talking. And there's a human organization, the CCG, and they like hunt ghouls and kill ghouls, and like in their mind there's no such thing as like a good ghoul. Like, they are committed to eradicating all ghouls, which is problematic. Ghouls have feelings too, and as you read this series, like, you kind of start questioning, like, who's the good guys, who's the bad guys. Like, that's kind of a theme throughout. I'm not finding a good picture. Sad. Anyways, the CCG, they're hunting the ghouls. And so there's like all different kinds of ghouls. There's different groups and gangs and organizations within Ghoul Society. There are some who try to source their human meals ethically, which, that means they're eating people who have like died of suicide or other things. So they're not actively going out and killing people. But then there are other ghouls who do like hunt down and prey on humans. And, there's all different levels in Ghoul Society as far as like what they do. And there's also like super powered ghouls, and as you read the series you realize like ghouls can like level up their power and become almost indestructible. Like, there are so many times where you think like that person is dead for sure, and then they are not. People like ghouls get decapitated and I'm like, ha, they're finally dead. No, they come back. So lots and lots and lots of fight scenes and battles. It's pretty gory, pretty violent. If you're squeamish, this is not the series for you, because, people getting eaten, lots of people killing each other, that sort of thing. But the main character is Kaneki. So he is a college student. He goes on a date with this girl and doesn't know that she's a ghoul. So she attacks him, and, he wakes up later in this medical facility, and unbeknownst to him, his life was saved, and the doctor operating on him put the ghoul's organs inside of him. So now he is like a half ghoul, and even though he's a half ghoul, he can only eat humans to survive. And of course, he's like very conflicted about this, and not, this is not what he chose, and he's having a really hard time, and he ends up being taken in by a group of, I guess they're not necessarily pacifist ghouls, but they're kind of like the more ethical type of ghouls, and they're kind of like teaching him how to survive in their society, and, he's kind of in this unique position of he's able to see both sides, like the human side and the ghoul side, and he really wants to find a way to get both sides to stop fighting each other and to find a way that they can cooperate and like in this like ceaseless battle between ghouls and humans. That's like a basic starting point of the series. It gets insanely complex, and I love it. Like, that's one of the things I love about it is the complexity, sort of the questions it raises, like philosophical and ethical questions, and I really enjoy like all of the character development. There are so many characters that you're introduced to in this book, like ghouls and humans, and learning about them and seeing how they change and grow in the series is my favorite part, for sure. I thought it was very rewarding reading experience, but it is very dark and intense, and like I said, older teens, so be aware of that. Okay. Whew. Alright, the next series is Ajin Demi-Human, and some people have compared this to The Walking Dead. I'm not sure that I would, but in this story, you've got demi-humans who, once they're killed, they can come back to life, basically forever, probably, maybe. The problem is that the government experiments on demi-humans. So they find a demi-human, they round them up, bring them to their facility, and do terrible things to them in the name of science. Very unethical. So demi-humans obviously are not happy about that. And the main character is Kai, and so he dies, comes back to life, discovers he's a demi-human, and gets plunged into this world he never knew about because the government has kept demi-humans like a secret from society at large. And so, all of a sudden he's learning about all this stuff, and kind of becomes involved in this like larger conspiracy orchestrated by this very old and powerful demi-human who like breaks out of the government facility, and his goal is to like take out the Japanese government and kind of rule the world. I don't know, we'll see, but he's doing this through extremely violent measures, because he can just keep coming back to life, so it literally slaughtering lots of people, and Kai is kind of like in opposition to him and working with some other demi-humans and some regular humans to try to stop him. So it's a lot of like plotting and scheming and strategy. In that way, it kind of reminds me of Death Note, because you've got these two smart, kind of cunning people trying to like one-up each other and figure out like what the other person's gonna do, and it's really interesting. So this one, yeah, again, lots of action, lots of violence and gore, because yeah, you've got the demi-humans being killed again and again in terrible ways, and then you've got them killing humans in terrible ways, so just take that into advisement. But it is definitely even, you know, it's an action story, but it's also like one that kind of has you thinking and trying to figure out like what's going to happen next. T's going to happen next. Moving right along, we have two left. These are both standalones, which means they are not a series. And I'll do All You Need Is Kill, because this one kind of ties in with Ajin, and you will know why when I read you the description. But this one is based on a Japanese novel of the same name. We have it in our adult sci-fi collection, so you can check that out. This was also adapted into, the book was adapted into an American action sci-fi movie starring Tom Cruise. So, you know, when I watched the movie, I'd already read the book and read the manga and was like, why is something that was originally set in Japan with like all Japanese people suddenly set like in Europe or somewhere and it's all white people? Why did they do that? I don't know. I do know. Anyways. Okay, so let me read you the description because it is more concise than my rambling. When the alien mimics invade, Keiji is just one of many recruits shoved into a suit of battle armor called a jacket and sent out to kill. Keiji dies on the battlefield, only to be reborn each morning to fight and die again and again. On his 158th iteration, he gets a message from a mysterious ally, the female soldier known as the Full Metal Bitch. Is she the key to Keiji's escape or his final death? And I read this like a long time ago, so I was trying to remember like what happened. But you know, as he's like dying and coming back to life, it kind of reminds me of a video game, like you die and you have to respawn and all that sort of stuff. But he's like learning from what happened to him before, and he's like, okay, so last time, you know, maybe I was killed by a landmine here, so the next time he comes back, he's like, okay, I gotta stay away from that area. And maybe in the second time around, he's killed by like an alien over here. So the third time he comes back, he's like, okay, avoid the landmine, avoid the alien. He dies in some other way. Okay, we've got to avoid that. And he's got this like list continually going and trying to survive like as long as possible. And what I think happens is that the female character, she also has the same sort of ability, and the same thing that's happening is that she's reliving the same day again and again, and that's why she's such a strong warrior, is because she has built up all of this experience from fighting again and again. So it's really cool. The art, if it looks familiar, it is by the artist who drew Death Note and Bakuman. So I love the style. It's, you know, it's pretty realistic, I don't know, and clean, and I just like it a lot. So look at her. She's like one of the best warriors, and she's so cute. And yeah, this one, again, lots of action and fighting and battle sequences and training, and I would say it's not as gory as like Tokyo Ghoul or Ajin or Dead Man Wonderland, but it still is rated for older teens. So, standalone. Our final one is Darker Than Black. So, when I was first kind of getting into anime, Darker Than Black was one of the first anime I watched, and I really loved it. I still love it. I still think it's like a really cool concept, and I really love all the characters. So this one is older teen, and I'll just read a little bit of the summary for you all. 10 years ago, the mysterious Hell's Gate suddenly materialized in the middle of Tokyo, and the stars of the night sky were obscured in darkness. In their place, new stars emerged, each corresponding to an individual endowed with supernatural abilities. Devoid of emotion and conscience, these powerful killers have come to be known as contractors. And so the main character is Hei, and he is a contractor, very powerful. And yeah, I really like his character. Somebody once described him as Chinese Batman, and I think that is very accurate. And in the anime and also in this, there's like some of the same characters. So he works with like a team. Like there's a contractor who is stuck in the body of a cat, like a black cat. So he used to be able to jump forms and he got stuck in this cat. So I don't know. I just always like it when cats say snarky things. So I enjoy that. There's also a human who works with them who's kind of like this old grouchy guy. And then you've got a doll who works with them. And I can't remember her name. But anyways, dolls are like different than contractors because like, you know, contractors are very active, like they're the ones fighting and doing things, and dolls are very passive. They don't really have much like free will, and they're kind of used to like track people down and communicate. So like when all four of them are working together, like the doll, she's able to like sort of telepathically communicate with the group, and you know, she can stick her hand in a pool of water and be like, okay, the target is standing by this river over here, and you know, she's kind of like in charge of the logistics in a way. So yeah, I just really like the concept of the contractors and their powers. One thing that's interesting is that whenever they use their power, there's like a price to be paid, and it varies from contractor to contractor, and they're all pretty, they're kind of bizarre, and they're like compulsive behaviors. So like one contractor has to, like, I think smoke a pack of cigarettes, and another one has to like arrange stones in like a straight line. Someone else, like, either they crack their knuckles or break their fingers. I think they break their fingers. That sounds gruesome. But yeah, it's just a really interesting world, and this is kind of like a side story, I guess, to the anime, and you know, you don't have to watch the anime to read this and understand what's going on, but yeah, that is good action sequences, of course. So those are my action manga recommendations. Hopefully you can get a chance to check them out. And if you're reading some of these series here, you've got a lot to read, a lot to keep you busy. And next time, I haven't decided what genre I'm going to cover next, but there's a lot to cover, like sports and vampires and slice of life and romance and crime and supernatural. I think I'm going to do one that's like Alice in Wonderland theme, because surprisingly, there's a lot of manga with Alice in Wonderland themes. So yeah, I'd love to know what y'all think, what your favorite manga and anime series are. You know, what's the first thing you read or watched? What would you want to read or watch again and again? Let me know. But yeah, I hope y'all have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!